Hey guys, this episode was actually recorded a few weeks ago, right before Psychos and Socios hit the market on Amazon, YouTube, movies, Google Play, and all that stuff. Love for you to check that movie out, Psychos and Socios, my movie, on those platforms. That'd be great. But yeah, it's a little old and we didn't upload very fast, but here you go. And we talk a lot about independent films, and it's pretty fun, pretty cool. Hope you enjoy it. Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 611 Films podcast. I am Neil McKay, and with me is
David Groves.
we are your hosts for this lovely little podcast where we talk about all things movies. And today we're going to do a little bit of I guess you could say a mock interview.
Kind of an interview type style thing. It's still going to be conversational, like we always do.
Well, yeah, we'll have some semblance of order to this thing of questions. Dave does not know the questions yet, but
I don't. That's
he
true.
will find out. So I have a handful of questions I'm going to ask Dave, because now Dave has a movie coming out. Is it tomorrow or Sunday?
It comes out on Sunday, it's coming out, I think, in spatters of different platforms like Google Play, YouTube Movies, and Amazon.
Okay, and this is the whole deal where you can go to Amazon, and the name of the movie is Psychos and Socios.
Yep.
And you could just search for that on Prime. Not Prime, on video. And then there's like a link to, you could either rent it or buy it. Correct. Right. And then I know, as I was explaining this to somebody the other day, if you get a deal with Amazon where they buy a licensing, then you would be on Prime and people with Prime Video could rent it. But right now you're just doing this distribution method where it's selling, renting.
It's TVOD, as they call it. It's TVOD, so it's transactional video on demand. Like that's the kind of like first thing you do. So the goal is to make as much money as you can with any film, but even for independents, try to sell it first, like have those dollars, and then 3, 4, 5 months from now, it'll probably just be something that just streams, and then there might be advertisements. So that's AVOD, advertising video on the
Yeah, very good. Right. Because I didn't even until recently, I didn't know what any of these acronyms meant either. I was like, AVOD, TVOD, what are you talking about? And then of course, while this is on Amazon and would you say Google Plus and things like that, you're in the midst of finding the distribution route with, like I said, somebody who wants to license it. Maybe this happens, maybe that happens, who knows? But this is kind of like, hey, it's out there in the world. People could see it. People have access to it. So very cool. So again, this is also like a little bit of a, we're throwing, like it's an advertising thing too, a little bit. Psychos and Socios. Yeah. It's on IMDb as well. I mean, if you search for David Groves, Psychos and Socios, I'm sure some hits will come out. He did the little cast and crew kind of screening in December. Really cool stuff. It was a great experience. I've known you a while, Dave. I'm really happy for you. This is awesome. Proud of all the stuff you did. So
yeah, man. Oh yeah, for sure. And this is 611 Films. I mean, hey, before we turn around, before we know it, you'll be doing the same thing pretty soon.
Yeah. Then my little movie comes out in the summer of this year. So yeah, it's really exciting stuff for 611 Films, because we got things coming out, things in the pipeline. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We thought it would be a fun little thing to do, kind of a mock interview, like I said, where I asked some questions about, how this movie came to be. And speaking of the horror movie that I did, Trip, this kind of, the Psychos Associates movie came first and then influenced a lot of the things that went down with Trip as far as, scheduling, budget, just kind of lessons learned and things like that. So, I don't even know if we'll get it all into this podcast, but, it's just kind of interesting how like one thing happens and then it snowballs into another thing, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're down the line 5 projects or something, and you're like, whoa, and it all started with this one.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Like that's the goal. I think that's sort of what we're trying to do. Right now, are things right around the corner? No, but like this is coming out, and then your movie's coming out, and then we're working on other things. Like, so
and then
like
yeah,
we're just trying to make sure like we keep the, like you said, snowball, just keep it going as much as possible.
keep that momentum going. So
Yeah.
now I wouldn't say what happens on Sunday is the finish line, because I mean it's really just this. It's a new beginning. It's the start
Right.
of a new thing. But essentially, I mean, this is what you put all the blood, sweat, and tears into, is to get the movie through the finish line and get it into, I mean, now it's in distribution. It's out there.
Right.
People can purchase this thing. Now, where this started, I just always find this like kind of an interesting story. You and I were at a bar somewhere in Virginia Beach. I think it was around Thanksgiving time. And you had pitched to me an idea of, hey, you know what? You write a script, I'll write a script, just a brand new idea, something we hadn't done before. And we'll give ourselves X amount of months to do it. And then we'll trade the scripts and give each other feedback. And let's just see what happens. And I was like, all right, sounds fun. Let's do that. And the script you wrote ended up being this movie.
Yeah.
And here we are. And it's like, I don't know, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, this was like,
it's been about 5 now. I mean, we shot Psychos in December of 2017. So it's been a little over 2.5 years since we shot it. But then I think it was the idea of us actually getting to, like, doing that whole thing. Like, hey, you write something, I'll write something. Keep it cool, small, independent. Let's really go that route. I almost want to say, because again, you were still in Virginia too, so 2000, late 15, maybe early 16. Because I think I worked on the script for a good solid year prior to shooting.
I think that sounds about right, and I would love to say it's all a neat little ball, and that I wrote Trip but that wasn't the case. I wrote this other sci-fi science fiction kind of time travel thing, and then while you were going into production with Psychos and Socios, I was then writing Trip, which, so that's a whole story for a whole other day. But it's just an interesting kind of, I guess, origin of a story of how this thing came to be, because I was kind of looking at it like, hey, why not? I'll write a script, you write a script. But you were kind of looking for kind of like a little bit of pressure. Like if we were doing something together and it was like, hey, we got a deadline and something, you wanted, you had the long game of like, I'm going to, whatever this is, I don't know what it is right now, but it's going to be a movie that I'm going to do. Right. This is going to be something that I direct, produce, and you were just like, hey, I'm done, standing on the sidelines. I'm gonna make a movie. So and so I guess if we're gonna kick off this little interview, what got you there? What inspired you to be like, hey, I'm gonna do this? Why the hell not?
So yeah, exactly. So like I think so we had been in LA for a good few years. Like you obviously left after the first year that we were here, and this was back in like 2008. And this is coming off the heels of us both doing 11, and it was cool, and we were really excited for LA and this, that, and the other, and it was great. And we got there, and again, life happens. Everything crashed, all this terrible stuff happened, and I was like, I was in the freelance world and you weren't, but I kept thinking I was basically just, okay, freelance, get into LA, figure it all out. And so I started doing a lot of video work, editing for different companies, this, that, and the other. I then got into working with bands. I did some music videos. I did some small promos, this, that, and the other. But I was never making movies. Like I wasn't still making movies since Virginia. And I thought maybe this one that I've been writing for years, I'll just do a teaser trailer. I'll do a teaser trailer for this film. That'll get me funding. Okay, cool. Never happened. And then I did it again for a second time, like in 2015. And yeah, it's a little too big, and you've never directed anything other than music videos. So I was just sort of at that point where I was like, well, I've been here now 10 years, 9 years or so. I haven't made a movie yet. And maybe this movie is too big. Let me just dial it down and just do something really small. Like I've always called like Psychos, like it's a play on film. Like it's a play. It's these four people in a room. That's it. And obviously things got a little bit bigger and crazier and all that stuff. But that was sort of the goal. It's like I just need to make something.
So what, and I guess borrowing from the things that you had written before and the kinds of things that you enjoy watching, and how did you kind of dial in on an idea with Psychos and Socios where you're like, okay, this is my kind of movie. This is what I would want to see. This is the story. Like, where did you get all of the kind of, pieces to bring it all together? And
I think that it kind of felt like, okay, if I'm going to do something small, it needs to also be big in a way. I don't know if that, like, how I mean is there needs to be a bigger story other than just people in a room just talking. That's great. Like Clerks did that and all that stuff. But we just had our Tarantino episode and I was like, well, this is like my Reservoir Dogs, if you will. So Six Shots, the other film I was working on for years and I'm still working on, I was like, well, that's probably like my Pulp Fiction, but I can't do that right now. I need to do something smaller. Like it needs to all be in a warehouse. It all needs to be in a convenience store. It just needs to be in a house. But it needs to have that grit. It needs to have that fun tension. I thought I was writing actually a thriller feature film with kind of a contained environment. And it turned into like other things and different sort of avenues. But at the same time, I was like, all right, like just have something really interesting, thriller, revenge kind of drama style. That's really kind of up my alley. So that's sort of where it all started.
yeah, and it is interesting too. This is kind of a little segue, but it's kind of interesting how you and I give each other challenges and deadlines and how we kind of respond well to that. Because I think when we were talking about what the ultimately became Trip was that you were like, hey, do something contained in one location, and the movie is completely contained in one house. And you had similar limitations. You have other locations, but in the same way, a lot of it is in a house.
I think that's actually where Psychos and Socios was born. It was born out of just, well, no, you're not going to get the money for this, and no, you can't do it this way, and no, you can't. Like the Hollywood system is just, work your way up and go be a PA on a Warner Brothers movie for 18 years and do this, do that, and this is the only industry too where you can literally just say, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a director, and people go, oh, okay, cool. Like, what have you done? But that was the kind of thing where I kept going, well, I have done this. I have made a movie before. I've produced a feature film. I've done music videos. I've done promos, commercials, corporate videos, all this stuff, but I hadn't made that. So I guess it was just sort of that idea of, let me just do something wild and crazy. And that's kind of how Psychos and Socios was born, was to bunk the system. It was just sort of say, oh, you don't make things don't be Tarantino. Don't make it all out of order. Oh, don't like have voiceover. Don't do this. Don't do that. Well, what if I did?
Yeah. And that's a good segue into my next question. And by the way, it is necessity is the mother of invention. I just Googled it. So I butchered that whole thing, but obviously.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's when you need something and you we need this thing, then that's where all the creative ideas and the inventions and things come out of. So hopefully that made sense and people aren't just like, what are these people
I think it does.
about?
And I actually agree with that. And I think Robert Rodriguez, like if you guys, anyone listening that knows film knows those limitations. Like again, El Mariachi, I have I've got a guitar. I've got a Mexican town. I can get a school bus. I can do this, and I'm going to make a $7,000 action movie out of all this. done deal. Like, but he literally, he didn't have money. He had to have the creative ways to do things. And again, we're still doing it, 30 years later.
Yeah, and I mean his. I almost feel like Rodriguez's gimmick is that, or his like little, kind of stamp on things is that he can do a lot with little, and
Right. Yeah.
no money. And he was doing. I heard some story they were offering him hundreds of millions of dollars to do Spy Kids sequels, and he was like, "Man, I only need like 20 million or something." And it's like because he just wanted to do it his own way and stuff.
Right.
And that was going to be, I guess, my next question was like, if this is your, boom, I'm gonna put my stamp out there. I'm gonna do this movie. So what were you kind of trying? I know you said you were kind of describing what you were going for, but like, what makes this a David Groves movie? What is your stamp? What were you trying to accomplish? Like, what do you like? Hey, yep, that's what I do. That's my thing.
Right.
When we watch this.
And sometimes I still don't even know. Like I'm still sometimes like, I think this works. I think this is cool. So like a lot of like the movie itself started with just all the characters breaking the fourth wall. So they just kind of come in and talk about themselves. And I was just sort of, let's just not have that like 20 pages, 30 pages of a script where let's get to know each other. Like, nope, let's just do it right here, right now. That's it. And just jump into the story. And again, I can't say it enough. It's kind of like that Tarantino, like, oh, you can't do that. Well, let me try it. Let me just see if it works. And I was always a big fan too of PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, David Fincher. I'm sure we're going to go into podcasts where we talk about those directors and their kind of style and how they do things. I was just, I don't know. It's hard to say it, but I guess I was just kind of fed up. I was fed up with the Hollywood system. I don't want to do that. I want to do my own thing and hopefully it works. And that was sort of the inclination to then do Psychos and Socios. Like I didn't have an idea of, oh, I want to make a movie about, sort of revenge or this or that, but it had those ideas. Like I've always been like a fan of thrillers and genre films, martial art films. So how can I do that, but do it small? Just keep it contained. And it slowly just started to come out. At first it was about a guy that was seeking revenge against kind of a bully of his in high school. That movie actually also came out with Jason Bateman and Joel Edgerton, The Gift. So I saw that. I was like, oh, well, that idea is done. So then I was like, all right, well, what can I do? And again, I sometimes try to start writing from a point of very small, very like this amount of characters, this, that's it. And then it goes crazy and it becomes like, and now there's another character and then there's this. Like it becomes that PTA thing, like that ensemble cast always comes in. I think from our 11 experience, which I'm sure we'll talk about on another podcast, like, yeah, well, what if this happens and this happens and that happens?
A lot of people say that it'll either start with a character or a scene or an idea, like a general plot line kind of thing. I mean,
right.
What would you say? Would it be a particular character? Or sometimes it could even be a word or a line of dialogue, and it just all of a sudden the story unfolds from that. What was kind of your like, I don't know, the center of where everything just kind of?
I think
started with this and then
I think it was actually I think it was just starting with like a revenge story. Like, let me try to do something small, but in a revenge kind of way. And like I said, I didn't know, like I had this idea of a character who acted kind of dumb. Like he looked like an idiot, but it's sort of like Usual Suspects where, Kaiser Soze is actually really brilliant. And so I kind of lifted from that, but I really wanted it to be but as opposed to that idea where he's sort of the main character and we're kind of seeing everything from his viewpoint. I like the idea of what if everyone's a bad guy? What if everyone's terrible? Like bad? So that's kind of where I was like then heading. I think on this like second or third draft, and I was just moving away from just like two people. And I think I remember I was calling it something like The Last Birthday, and it was about a guy's birthday party. And it was like his psycho friend comes into town and just ruins his night terribly. But then it slowly, again, it was just like, the gift happened and it didn't work. And I didn't really love the idea. But then I was like, oh, what if I opened it up? And all like he was crazy in like my first draft. What if he's crazy, but then so's the other guy? And what if he has a wife and she's crazy? What if they have a best friend and he's crazy too?
I would like to say that, I mean, I've seen the movie, a few times, and you said, a couple times to me, in passing and stuff like that, "Oh, all the characters are unlikable," and I kind of disagree with that. I mean, I could definitely say there's a clear protagonist, and
There is definitely.
I kind of like the guy, so and I kind of I like the cast in general. I mean, you're watching the movie and it's like these people are insane and they're clearly villains, but you're kind of like, yeah, but I could see hanging out with them. That's what's kind of the genius of the movie. It's like wow, I could feel like I could be friends with these people and they're fucking nuts.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I tried to separate. So at that point, I guess 3-4 drafts when I started to really hone in on like Aaron, the protagonist, and all of the other characters, I was sort of just like, well, if they just do bad things the entire time, you don't really care. But what if they were dealing with their own issues? What if it's, again, everyone talks about the idea of like psychos and socios and sociopath and oh, well, they live next door. Like, I never knew it from that guy. He was always so normal. He was always so easygoing, and no idea that he did terrible things. And I always liked that idea of, well, what if you like them? Like, what if you wanted to hang out with them? What if they had aspirations and dreams and they wanted to do things in Hollywood? Again, the movie actually takes place here in LA where I'm at, and I made it an LA story, but at the same time, it kind of that underbelly thing was just kind of fun of writing something where like, yeah, the lead guy wants to be, on a network television show, but he's a stunt man, but he also kills people. So does the wife, and she wants to do this, but she sells drugs, and everyone has these aspirations, I think, but they're also crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but again, I like that idea of let's keep them as like they need to be human beings at the same time.
Right, and I think that's a strong suit of the movies for sure. Is they're very relatable, identifiable characters, even though most of them are, if not all of them, are completely insane.
Right.
Now I have just one more question here on the whole writing story bit, but because I kind of asked myself this. I'm sure everybody asks themselves when they go into the daunting task of writing a story. And with screenwriting, you have I think with indie movies, you want to stay, around 80, 90 minutes to like 2 hours, like somewhere in that realm. You don't want to go too short, how do you know you have enough material to fill, a feature length movie? And conversely, how do you know you have too much material? Like, oh my God, this is going to be 3 hours. We need to pull this back. Too much story, too little story. Yeah. How do you know?
I've always written very short. Like for me personally, I think in the first couple drafts of Psychos, I'm not positive, but I think it hit around like 80, 85 pages. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, I need to then write this and talk about this. And then I've always found like any writing that I've ever done just kind of stops around 80, 85, 90 pages.
And just for anybody that doesn't know, like generally the amount of pages is the amount of minutes. So 85 pages, right. 85 minutes. So in case.
Right. Yeah. So like 90-page script is normally kind of what you're going for. You want about that for any kind of indie movie or
Unless you're David Lean, and then it's going to be like 300, 400 pages or something like that.
Yeah, or you're just going to have like, or Tarantino, even Tarantino, like, I'm just going to have Brad Pitt just driving around and we're just going to watch that for like 2 minutes. That on the page looks like
that's maybe one line.
Brad Pitt's on the 405 or 101. That's it. But then it's like, all right,
well, 2 minute
watch him drive.
So,
but
just curious, what was the final page count of Psychos and Socios?
I think it hit around 86 pages.
And what was the final runtime?
Final runtime 84.
Oh, so you were almost right on the money.
Yeah, it always kind of works out that way. Like I've always found that the page count is sort of that. And again, you're trimming the fat, you're always cutting stuff in or letting things linger. I remember when we were even talking about the movie, I had the opening where all the characters are just talking about themselves and who they are and, breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera. It was wildly long in the script and I loved it. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. But then you shoot it and then you start editing it and you go, move it along. All right, no more. Don't need that. Don't need this. Don't need that. And let's cut the fat and get to the next section of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would like to make a point of that particular scene you're talking about. Anyone who was listening, you see the movie, it's one of the first scenes of the movie. But that was something on page that did not, my first impression was like, I don't know. This is kind of cool, but it might be too gimmicky. It was just one of those things where it's like, it doesn't look like it would be like a hit, but then when you see it, you're like, wow, that was awesome, And it's like, so sometimes things don't translate well on the page as well as they do on the screen, and vice versa. That was I felt like one of those scenes. I was like, wow, that was really cool. And, and I think a lot of people, not just me, said that to you. They were like, I don't know about this. And you were like, nah, it's going to work. Trust me. And then sometimes, you just got to stick to your guns and be like, nope. And then if it doesn't work, then you go, well, I guess we'll reshoot that.
Yeah. Or I guess, on the next one, I won't do that.
We'll just
again. It was more of it was very it was that thing. I was just getting to that point of being in LA. Like again, I've been in LA for 11 years now. I hadn't made anything, so it just hit that point of like, oh shit, or get off the pot already, dude. Like, what are you doing? And so, like again, it was a lot of different things where it was sort of like, okay, I'm just going to write something like, again, I say Psychos, it's called Psychos and Socios. It's a crazy film, but I wrote it kind of manically and crazy too. Like I did not have any kind of borders or walls around me. I didn't care about structure or how this would work or how that would work. I just did it without any of that stuff. And I think that was the fun of the movie, or the way that I wrote it. And then going into the production and directing, why not? Do something crazy, do something fun.
Cool. So here's a question that I asked you when you were in this process, and I'm sure it's kind of $1 million question, I think, for a lot of people. You have the story, you're ready to go. Maybe you have funds, maybe you don't. You need to figure out your budget, how much you're going to spend, where you're going to spend it. Where do you even begin with this? How do you even wrap your head around this? Because it's such a like, oh my God. Because you have to find a camera department. You have to find your talent. You have people that are going to act in this movie. You have to find, this is a little bit further down the line, but editing and music and sound design. You have to find insurance and people to cater the thing, to feed your cast and crew, and all in the art department, the people that are going to create your sets and dress your actors, all of this stuff. It just goes on and on and on. Where do you even begin? Where do you set a number? How do you even, what the hell do you even do?
Right. And that's the type of thing that I think for any filmmaker, it's always that I don't even know what maybe this costs that. Like, luckily, again, we were in like the film business, kind of working on things. I had done short films, I had done music videos, ultra low budget stuff, like things nobody's ever seen before. But it kind of gives you that idea of, okay, I can get this for this. DP would cost this. I had already had some camera equipment. I knew I was going to be the editor. So my personal feeling was, it was always like, just put a number to it and then just stick to that number. And it will never work out that way. It will always go up. But I had in my head, let's just make a $50,000 low budget movie. So yes, it has gone up from that, but at the same time, I was thinking, okay, I know actors, I have some, like I said, cast, crew, people I knew, I could get a favor here or there. I had no idea what it would cost for like here in LA specifically, like, oh, I have kids in my movie, and oh yeah, you need a studio teacher. Well, what's that? Probably like $100, 150. No, they're like $400 a day.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you want to block off a street? Yeah. Like, can I just get we had done that for 11, and we had actual like off-duty police officers in Maryland doing this. What was that? Like, I think 150, $200 here in LA. That's $600 a day.
When we were doing 11, this is in the middle of kind of a rural town, little small town in Maryland. So it's completely different, because you get that, oh, you're shooting a movie, awesome, can I be in it? Versus in LA where it's like, hey, pony up the cash, bro. That's totally you want night and day kind of look at it.
You want to use my liquor store, and I only for like 2 hours, like it'll be fun. No, like, give me $500 for that. What?
The difference between two, though, 11 is the movie that you and I both did in Virginia years back. But with Psychos and Socios, and then with Trip, for me in Austin, we both paid everybody. I mean, not well. I mean, not what they would normally get, but
for sure.
But I mean, that was kind of one of your things where you're like, hey, I'm not going to ask for a bunch of favors. I mean, you sort of are. You're asking people to work for less than maybe they normally get. But I mean, you were like, hey, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to pay people for their time. I'm not going to screw around. I'm going to ask people to give me friend rates maybe. And then, I'm going to, hey, this is your rate. Can you do this? But, we were both going into this, with the respective projects, like, hey, because that's important.
But that's another thing too. Like you got to when we did that it was a while ago, 2004, 2005. And we were working in that like kind of idea of people are just trying to get stuff like for their reel and move the career forward and all that stuff. But at the same time, like once you've done that in your like early to mid 20s, let's graduate. Let's get to people will respect and show up if you pay them versus maybe they're there, maybe not.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing too. It comes out of this idea of, okay, so if I'm going to, again, like you just said, I can't pay them what their rate would be, but at the same time, I'm not I'm saving face a little bit with just saying, hey, here is $125, $150 a day. And that was like actually the SAG rate. That is the quote SAG rate back then. I think it's jumped up to about $200 or 201 or something for an 8-hour day, which is great. I mean, it should be. But I think that kind of separates people. Like I've been in this town so long, and we make jokes about this, like copy credit meal, like get experience, get on this set, do this thing. You'll make a ton of contacts, and those contacts will pay you later, but we won't pay you. It's just sort of like,
Dave, I want you to be a part of my movie because it's going to Cannes. It's going to
Yeah,
Sundance. I mean,
it's going to Sundance.
going.
Yeah.
We're gonna have all them big fat cat Hollywood producers banging down the door. That was a line in
They're
our movie,
coming.
11.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yes, I
yeah,
remember that.
it's all BS. So you
But to go
basically
back to your point too, it's just sort of like this thing. What is your budget? How did you figure that out? I kind of threw a number at it, and I think like everybody could do that. If you want to make a feature film and you say I only have 25K, I only have 10K, I only have 100K, maybe for your first feature, don't go over $100,000. But I kind of knew this is what it would take. And then it always balloons. It always goes over a little bit in places you never expected it would. So hopefully it doesn't go that way. But a movie can basically kind of like, you can't make Fast and Furious movies for, 50K. Not possible.
right.
And whether you're paying Vin Diesel $18 million for this next movie, or like cast alone is going to be one thing, but physical production work, like the people on your team, I always thought, okay, as long as I got like 10 people, I need DP, grip, gaffer, sound, production design. Hopefully they can also work in costume. For a low budget movie, people are doing different roles for sure.
Yeah. And I think it does help. And this is from my own personal experience too. It's like if you find somebody who can be your kind of right hand man, woman, and they can tell you if you trust them and stuff, and they could say, like I had that with camera department. I was like, okay, look, this is what I got.
Yeah.
What's your wish list, and like what's your bare minimum, and then you get an honest answer, and then you go to your post and like where you're doing sound and music, and okay, look, this is what I can do. And I think if you're upfront and honest with people and say, look, this is a shoestring budget, come on, like I can give you this, but I can't give you the moon. I think people respond to that. It's just the kind of it's the attitude where it's you have to look at it as like, look, you respect their time and their abilities, and it's like, hey, I'm undercutting you, I'm giving you less than what you normally get, I'm sorry, but I want you come at it like that, as opposed to like barking orders at people and stuff. You get, what would they say?
Yeah.
You're gonna attract a lot more flies with honey than, or so, I don't know. I'm butchering these cliche sayings. I don't know.
No, it's fine. But that's true. And I think that's the idea. It's sort of, I think that a lot of people in the film world know, even if you're not paying someone and they're coming in fresh and green and whatever, they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years, whatever they are, feed them. Least you can do, or pay for their gas, or do something. I just think that the idea of, sort of just, again, people show up if you get paid. Like no other business is in this world where, hey, just work on this thing. And, maybe you'll meet someone that'll pay you later, but not me.
Right.
This is the only industry where we can literally say, I'm a director, and people go, cool. Good, I guess you are.
I guess. That's,
but then but then I need this crew and this and all these people to work on my movie and do it for experience. And it's sort of like okay, and then they sometimes will. But I think that's the point, is sort of like we this business, until you get into that upper echelon of whether it's studio films or higher budget or going into TV directing, producing, and working, there's a ton of people that are just like, just trust me, I got it.
Yeah. I think, and I think people, the older you get, I think people respond to more the realistic approach to, and don't give me this, we're getting into Sundance and Cannes. Give me the whole, okay, look, I can't pay you this, but, and then you try to work.
I'm still baffled by that idea. Actually, I still see things like sometimes I'll jump on like Craigslist or all these other platforms where people are, I'm making a feature, I need a set decorator, I need a grip, I need a gaffer, copy credit meals. But you'll meet great people, and we're all gonna come up together, kind of deal. And it's like,
Yeah. And I mean, that might fly in, Augusta, Maine, or, Cheyenne, Wyoming or something. But I mean, if you're in a town where, and I mean, and I'm not disrespecting Maine or Wyoming, but it's like a lot of people that live out there are not interested in the film industry. And if they are, they're probably moving to towns like Los Angeles or Chicago or New York, or, who knows? But
yeah, and you and I did this again. We did this in our mid-20s, like kind of early 20s, and yeah, we had people that came on board that wanted to work because like we had decent scripts, or they were friends of ours, or we just knew people, and that's one thing. I think it's always become that like it's just weird when you're just asking random strangers to just, hey, work on my movie, and not going to get paid, but we're going to the moon with this movie. Like we're going to get this and that, and you're going to get all these things. I again go like with Psychos. I just knew after we had done 11, after all that stuff had been done, I said never again. I definitely will pay people, and that's how it needs to go. That's why you budget a movie.
And so now you were kind of, now you're saying, based on these experiences with the music videos and these things, I was coming into this like when I did Trip and we were talking, I had done stuff with you obviously years ago, but I've been out of the game for a while. So I kind of came into this as, maybe some people listening fresh off the boat know nothing about how to budget or how much people get paid or any of that stuff. So I was kind of going to you as like, okay, how much can you, I mean, not that I don't know these things, but it had been a few years. So what's the going rate for a director of photography? I don't know. What do you pay a composer nowadays? I don't know. And on an independent film, and this is your budget. I mean, who the hell knows? So I was going to you for a lot of advice, and you kind of created a budget.
Yeah.
And then kind of gave me that as a template. And of course, mine changed in different directions. I was able to go higher and lower, and I was able to go lower than it, and some things ended up being higher.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the beast.
As it always goes for every
as it always
film.
goes. But this was a great template, because you were like, hey, I think I can get away with this. And I was able to do it. And, again, I mean, you got to wheel and deal. You got to negotiate. You can't just, it's all about finding the right people and the right people you gel with. And, they have to understand. I mean, some people just want a paycheck.
Some people just want a paycheck. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, if you can live with that, you can live with that. But it's like, if you're in the shoestring budget realm like we are, it's like, well, maybe that's not the best fit, because
I think I can't
give you that paycheck.
But here's the thing, and I think that's the biggest thing to take away. If you take away anything from this podcast about my movie or Neil's movie, or how the industry works or anything, you have to remember that at the end of the day, it's literally just someone's paycheck. It's your vision, it's your art, it's your creativity, it's your possibly even your money that you're putting into this. And for the other person that's just putting a light over in the corner, that's all they're doing. They don't, it's not, this is your baby, not theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about other people's children as much as they all, oh, so cute, oh, that's great. Yeah, I don't care about your kid. As much as you care about your kid, you love your kid, you would sacrifice your own life for your own kid. Other people, not a chance.
I will say this though, and I found this very very interesting and humbling, really, is that I had a couple people help me out with Trip in Austin that, they came on board for like peanuts to do grip work or what have you, or art department or something. And they had directed things and written things, and they're filmmakers and they're doing their own stuff. And I was like asking them at the end, I was, why the hell are you doing this movie for nothing? And they were like, they just loved being on set. And I was like, yeah, you're out of your damn mind. But it was just like, man, wow.
Yeah,
like,
and that's why I loved being with that cast and that crew in Austin with you back in August. And it was great. And my cast and crew, they were great too. But I've also worked on other sets, other productions where, again, they're looking at their watch. How long is this makeup effect going to take? What's going on here? Can't we move this along? Why haven't I eaten yet? It's been 2 hours and I want lunch now instead of. Yeah, there is that feeling. I think I would say probably L.A. and New York. There's just that idea of like this is a business and this is just what we do. This is our job. This is what we work at. And whether they're high school or college students or they're grizzled 70-year-olds that have been just doing this for way too long and just don't care anymore, I still think that there's always going to be that idea that it's just a job here. Like all I'm doing is a job. And we also put that out there too. I mean, as the industry, Hollywood, Golden Globes, award shows. It's they're so good looking. They're so No, it's hard. Like you go work on a 14-hour, 15-hour set day and put up lights all over the place for weeks on end. And yeah, it's pretty rough.
I can attest. I'd done it in a while, and then recently I got down into shooting days, and it was like, oh my god, this is
this is hard.
This is hard work.
And so I'm the director. I really don't. Everybody keeps telling, and it's funny too because as I'm sure you would know too, when I first got into here in LA and doing those like promos or commercials or music video type things, I was always trying to be like helpful. I was like, I'll grab that sandbag. It's fine. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't touch that. Like, you're the director. You just direct. I was like, oh, that's how the other half lives. That's amazing. Like, no, just worry about your talent. Just worry. People kept saying that. I'm like, no.
They're like offended if you touch it. Like, oh, no. Like, oh, go.
Like, no. You just talk to them. You talk to talent and you talk to your DP and that's it. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's it.
I'm just trying to be helpful and move this around and make things go faster. But that's, again, that's the culture of it. Like, that's how it always is and how it's always been and how it will always be.
But at the same time, I mean, and I will say, yes, I mean, maybe it's perceived that a director does less work than everyone else. And maybe that's true to a degree. It's still a long day and it's still a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe they're right. A director does less, but it's a long day.
Well, it's not less. It's just one of those things. It was just funny for me when I was trying to move a sandbag or move a light around and being on like some of those music video sets or something. And people are just like, nope, stop it. That's our job. You don't do that.
Actually, it's probably, if in situations like that, it's probably like the least physically demanding of the positions. Maybe, I don't know.
Physically less demanding, of course. Mentally, again, we're still just like, is this fucking scene working? I don't know. It's the acting.
That's where I was like, it's mentally exhausting. Physically, I might not be doing, but I mean, like by the end of the day, I am exhausted because my head is just spinning out of its damn mind. Like I'm like, what the hell just happened?
And you just hope at the end of the day it all worked out and it's all going to come together and the editing and the sound and the music and all these things are going to just work out.
So now this kind of leads me to this question. What of all the things that happened on Socios and Socios, what would you say was the most fun, cool, had a good time kind of part of it? And then on the flip side, what was the most not fun, or I mean, maybe you could say challenging. What was the most like, hey, this was awesome, and then this part was like, oh man, this was a.
I think, yeah. I mean, I honestly just love seeing when you're a writer director, and you don't have to be. I mean, if you want to just direct other people's writing or this, that, or the other, but for you and I, we're both writer directors. So when you were stuck in a room and just banging your head against the wall and going, oh, this scene isn't working. Oh, what do they say? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? Once it all is done with the writing and you're actually on set, and I love being on set. I love talking to actors. I love actually directing a scene, how the cameras are placed, do this, that, and then just seeing it all come to life of like, oh, I wrote that like 8 months ago, and now I'm seeing it visually with actors on camera. That's the probably best feeling. That's the most fun you can have. But then it's also the most challenging too, because again, you just don't know. You think it's all going well and everything's great and this is working and that's working, and then you jump into the editing and the post-production phase, which you and I are both very aware of, where you go, oh, that oh that didn't work at all. And I got to figure out how to now make it work. As cool as it was on set, and I'm loving every minute of it, and it's great, and the actors and the lighting and the sets, all that stuff goes out the window when you're then sitting at the editing chair in post-production going, no, that's not the take. I thought it was, but that's not it. That thing didn't work as well as I thought it would. And now I've got to go in and try to fix it or recreate or do something to make it work.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because we're both editors, so we both see this. I'm going to tell you this, and you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. You can cut this one scene and just be like, oh my God, nothing is working. Like this shot's out of focus. I didn't like the performance of this actor here. Oh no, this breaks continuity. Oh no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like just everything is going wrong. Nothing. You're just like, how the hell am I going to? And then on the flip side, there's this other scene where everything goes right, and you're like, it's great. And then they throw in music and sound, and you're just like, and all of a sudden it's just like, wow, can I just give some of that love to this other scene that needs it so bad? Like, why is this scene so perfect and this scene is so bad?
Yeah. And that's the grass is always greener for you and I, who will spend months on end doing just the one thing in a room. Like we're writing or we're editing and no one else is around. But then we have 2 weeks, some people have 1 week of production. And it's great and it's awesome and you love it and you're with people and you're just doing things, and then you go into the cave of editing or writing and it's just like, is this working? I don't know. Like, can someone help me here do this? Like, there's not a team of 10 people behind you going like, yeah, don't make that edit move. Like, don't do that. Like, cut it this way. Like, I just have to do it myself and just kind of see what works or doesn't work. And sometimes, that's a very trying issue. But I do think that that's the fun of, like, that's why we're filmmakers. It is that, like, I do love that because grass is always greener. If I'm sitting in a chair too long, I can go and work on set. If I'm on set too long, just go and sit in an edit bay and just edit.
I wonder.
That's the great thing.
Do you wonder if you and I became editors because of like a common personality type or something, or is it like a control thing? Like we need to control, directing's not good enough, we have to piece it together our own way, or is it just like we have the temperament to do it? Because editing's a lot of bullshit.
I think you definitely have more of a temperament for editing than I do. Like I remember when we were back in like Virginia, DC, and you were starting to look at like After Effects and Photoshop and all those things, and we actually had classes that at the university that we were working with, like they had these free things, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. I was like, I can only cut things. I do not have patience for any After Effects. I can't sit for an entire day to then like see something that lasts for 3 seconds. It just doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm. No,
but that's the kind of thing that I think you could do. And I don't know if it's like the temperament of like controlling, but yeah, it is very that idea,
funny.
Like with directing and wanting to have that, no, this is mine, or this is like what I'm doing. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that though. Yeah, because I am totally that person that could spend hours just to get like a 2 second, 3 second thing.
Yeah, and I don't have that.
Not
like,
even a question. It like, just, yep. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of temp. I mean, yeah, I will sit for days on end. I mean, I'm working on the music video for the main theme song of the movie right now, and sure, I've watched that over and over and over again. I've made 4 or 5 different cuts on it, and it's like every single day you go back to it, you always go, oh man, let me trim that or tweak this or do this to it.
Yeah, I mean,
you always find something you can do, but at some point I'm just like, all right, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a really good editor. So even though you may be like, I don't really want to do it, but I mean, you do it well, even if you may not have that.
Oh no, I'm just talking about like temperaments. Like if you and I had like that idea, like as you're asking me, is it about control or the temperament? I've always been sort of a little bit of everything. It's sort of that jack of all trades kind of deal. Like I do like having my hand in everything. So that's why I like producing and directing. I have my hand in everything.
Yeah.
And I can be very nitpicky about certain things, or like as an editor, I think like mostly just because that's been my quote day job, my 9 to 5 for the last 15, 20 years, that it's just ingrained in me now.
Mm.
But it's
I think
definitely
you and I became friends even before that. I mean, we were both editors like before we even did movies together. I mean, really. We were. I think you and I at Mason were more like editors than we were cinematographers.
For sure.
So.
Well, I shot a lot of video. I did a lot of videography, video production kind of work. I slowly got into more of the editing world, I think, here in LA. I was shooting probably more than I was editing back in Virginia. But at the same time, I think it was just sort of, I don't know if it was just one of the, I just started to do it. I think I liked it a lot more when I knew I had control over it. So to give a little backstory real quick. So Neil and I worked on deck-to-deck editing. And this is when you had to put tapes into machines and then cut and splice things onto another tape. And if you did this for 8-9 hours and then you made a mistake literally in the last minute, do it all over again. So I hated it. I hated that idea of cutting or editing. And then it just so happened that Apple at the time brought out, iMovie and iTunes. I maybe it was just iPhoto or iMovie. Oh, you can put things into the machine, and then if you screw up, you just click undo. You're good. So that's where I was like, oh, this is now more fun, and I don't hate myself. Or I hate this process, really, because I couldn't stand it. I was like, I will be a cinematographer. I will be a DP. I will be on set. I'll be a director. I'll write. I will never be an editor if this is how the technology is going to go. But that's how we learned. And then with the nonlinear editing, Final Cut, Premiere, Avid, all that stuff, I was like, oh, so much cooler.
Yeah. I find this, and this is probably honestly something that should be its own podcast. So make a note of this or whatever. But just kind of, I find this very interesting, like how people get interested in their particular, like why one would become an editor or a director or a writer or a musician or I guess for movies it would be
even an actor,
or an actor or a cinematographer, or all of these things. Like what puts you in that direction? So let's make a note of that. That'll be the next one of the next podcasts.
I think maybe one of these days we'll have a podcast with some special guests or people that we'll talk to in various
absolutely fields. But I just find that interesting, like what because we could, I mean, it's like we you said in the first podcast, like you thought you were going to be an actor and then it ended up being different, and it's like sometimes it happens. So getting back to a couple more questions, and then then boom. So okay. I have this. I love this thing called happy accidents, and I love it when they happen on movie sets. And for those, I think everyone's got their own idea of like happy accidents and things like that. I'll give one example, really cool example of a movie called Garden State that came out in I think 2004. Zach Braff from Scrubs. Right. He describes it. He described the scene, and this is back in the day when they were doing DVD commentaries and things like that. And the very last shot, spoiler alert, is him kissing Natalie Portman in the middle of an airport, and the camera is doing a pullback, going really wide. It was really close to them, and it's going really wide. And right before it cuts to black and starts rolling in credits, this like light illuminates behind them, like kind of like angelic light, just perfectly around the two of them kissing.
Yeah,
And then it just
right.
cuts to black. And he's explaining like that's a happy accident because they had the set locked down, but this one guy, this janitor, was walking around and he's just doing his thing and he's knocking lights off and stuff. And he shuts off or he hit the button for an elevator. Something happened. And that light, which was like not even in the scene or something, but or whatever he was doing was casting the light, into the shot. And the shot was messed up because that wasn't supposed to happen. But it just so happened to perfectly it was like, well, it was luck of the draw, like how we couldn't have planned it any better.
Yeah.
And so and those things happen from time to time on movie sets. Did you have any of those kinds of happy accidents happen to you on Psycho?
Yeah. Well, actually, yes, we did have that. And I'm going to do my best to not like spoiler alert. But so the very end of the movie, I had a vision in my head of where the last shot of the movie would happen and where the characters would be. And it all went terribly wrong. Like we were trying to kind of game the system. Let's just go and shoot this thing. And, we had a child with us and everything just went wrong. We went to this place and cops were there and we didn't have a permit at that area. And so we basically were like, all right, let's just go back to base camp, which was the apartment we were shooting in earlier, and figure it out. And so then the DP and producer, Nelson and Mackenzie, were like, why don't we just do it in our backyard? I was like, your backyard? What do you mean? Like, just shoot it over there. Shoot it like behind, our apartment building. Well, it's not the play. And, director me, well, I don't know if I really like. And then I looked at it and then I saw it and the kid and the mom was there. Everyone was there. I was like, all right, let's just do it. Let's just figure it out. Fine. No problem. I didn't know it then. But then it was one of those, it was a happy accident. This works so much better. It's more ingrained in the film than I thought it would be. Like it just kind of makes sense as opposed to where I thought it would be. And again, I know I'm being very like, okay, skip over this if you don't want to. I thought it was going to be at a church and it was going to have all this symbolism and it's going to be this. It's in the back of an apartment that the movie ends right there. And at the time I was like, all right, I guess let's just do it. Let's try it. Well, if I need to reshoot it, maybe I'll figure it out. But then I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's where it needs to end. It just makes sense there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's a perfect example of the best kind of happy accident is when things go wrong. And because they went wrong, it forces your hand into another situation that ended up being a better situation. And
funny enough too, it was funny too, because I don't think that Nelson and Mackenzie, the producers of the film, and Nelson, the DP, I don't think they had ever met their downstairs. Like they were on like the third or fourth floor. But I don't think they had met the people that were on like the third or second floor or something. Because we always wanted to kind of end the movie on like a bird's eye view of a character. And we didn't know how to do it at the other like location we thought we were going to do it. It was just going to be something we would figure out on set. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they see us and we're kind of throwing up a little bit of lights and people are coming in and we got cameras. And so the neighbors upstairs were just like, hey guys, what are you guys doing? And we were like, oh shit, they're going to like shut us down. They're going to call the cops because a lot of people out here are, hey, if we're not getting paid or you can't shoot things out here in LA without paying for it. They're like, oh, that's great. We're in the industry too. And then Nelson was like, can we go up and shoot up there? And they're like, yeah, give us a 6-pack of beer and we're good to go. And I was like, done deal.
Hmm.
So there's like the second to last shot of the movie. There's kind of a bird's eye view, kind of a long shot on a character, and it was just kind of interesting where they had never met their neighbors, and then we got the shot, and everyone was happy. It all worked out. It's kind of cool. It's really fun to be a filmmaker.
It is, yeah. And you mentioned it earlier on an earlier question when we were talking about this, that, and the other, and you were talking about that, like when as a writer, when you write these lines and you describe a character,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
you see it play out in front of you. And I think that would probably, and I agree, that had a lot of resonance with me, because I was like, that's kind of, I think, why I'm still even trying to do this in my old age, is like we both have that common vision of like, that is just so cool when you write a story and then you put it out on the screen, like, so people can see your story. And that just is like, I mean, I can only imagine that's what it's like for a musician. Like they hear a beat at a thing in their head, and then they, they pull it all out, and then boom, then now it's a song on the radio and people are listening to it, and it's like, holy shit, like you're like, I did that, and it's
it's so much fun. Like, I mean, again, you were there at the December premiere, and yeah, I'm kind of a nervous wreck, and we've got like, we've got a little thing going on with these the reel that I was doing, and Johnny and Alex were performing and all this stuff, and I had to take a moment, because I think I was sitting right next to you, and I was just like, okay, let me just be in the moment. You know what I mean? So then when you hear and laughter is happening, or something else is happening, or people are like, oh my God, that's the greatest moment. Like when it's all done, especially for a filmmaker, and 2 years later, it's on screen and people are seeing it. That's fun. That's why we do it, I think.
Yeah. And don't forget to, like you said, be in the moment, because there's so many times when like good things happen and you're just like, you're so nervous about this, that, or the other. And then you blink and it's over and you're like,
yeah,
I didn't even realize it happened. It's like, and then that's life, man. And it's just gone. And you're
it's all moments. It's all moments. I said it to you, actually. I said it to you when you came into town. I was like, you're like, oh, how you feeling? I was like, I blink and it's going to be over. Like you're going to be gone, and this is all going to be done. Like the high of like all that stuff. Yeah. Come Monday, I go back to editing, or I just do this. But it's those moments that are fun, and that's why we do it.
On that note, happy birthday, Dave. Congratulations on Socios and Socios. Yeah, we'll see
you guys on the next one.
We'll see you on the next one.
All right, guys. Peace out.